Welcome to the Flowstate Unleashed podcast. My name is Amy Ford. I am a mental performance coach. And on today's episode, I'm going to be diving deep into the topic of burnout. Now, this is something that I have recently experienced, and I'll kind of dive into a little bit of how that showed up for me, because I think it's really valuable, especially if you're an athlete, because sometimes we tend to ignore the signs and we continue pushing through until we hit this wall. And then the universe basically forces us to sit out. So in my situation, what happened is to be completely transparent, over the last year or so, I've been managing a separation procedures, and we've been in the thick of it. Like all of last fall, we've done 2 mediation dates, and this year we've had 2 court dates. So it's been stressful, and it's been one thing after another very quickly. And it was very, very heavy. I know that jiu-jitsu for me really supports my mental health and was really helping me manage a lot of the feelings and a lot of the anxiety and a lot of the stress that was coming with that process. So I continued training and at the same intensity levels, but at the same time, my intuition was also telling me, maybe you need to slow down, because I was stressed. Like I stopped sleeping like a full 8 hours. Like some nights I was probably getting like 5.5, maybe 6 hours if I was lucky. Because there's a lot of unknowns, and none of this process is in my control. It's in everybody else's hands, and I'm just going where I need to go and showing up where I need to show up. So it was really hard. And it was very draining. And on top of that, we're in the middle of one of the hardest winters. I think the snow that came down in Barrie was nonstop. So I'm out there as a single mother shoveling my driveway all the time, trying to keep my driveway clean. And then my neck hurt and my back, like I was a hot mess, but I still kept pushing forward. I was like, I'm still getting to jiu-jitsu. I am still going. And I was exhausted, and my training started to suffer as well. And I don't know about anybody else. I'm also a stress eater in reverse. So I'll forget to eat when I'm stressed. And so I wasn't adequately I wasn't adequately eating and still training with the same intensity, still going to the gym. Anyways, I hit a wall. And we hit this wall big time in February. And still, I was still trying to push through. I was like, no, it can't be a wall. I'm still going to go training. It'll make me feel better. But it made me feel a million times worse. And I think if I had listened to the signs earlier and kind of peeled back, I probably wouldn't have hit this wall as dramatically as I did. I probably went through a period of 2 weeks where I just had to sleep. It was like fatigue, and I ended up getting an injury because I wasn't listening. And that brings me to my 3 biggest mistakes that I made with burnout, or with noticing the signs of burnout. And the one thing was not listening to myself, not really paying attention to what was happening around me, and I kept pushing through. And this is very common for a lot of, especially jiu-jitsu athletes, but athletes in general, because we have this goal in our head and we want to just keep moving forward towards it. So, and I have no off switch until I'm forced to sit down. So yeah, that was one of the biggest mistakes, was just continue pushing. And the second mistake was being really, really hard on myself. I didn't give myself space. So even though I had this neck injury and I was really tired and I was like, fine, I'll just sit here, I wasn't actually giving myself permission to rest. I was resting, but I was still sitting with a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, because I wasn't pushing towards my goals. So that was another mistake. So I really grappled with those feelings, which made it worse for myself, right? And then the last mistake I made was rushing to get back. So now I'm sitting at home. Now I'm giving myself adequate rest. I finally gave myself permission to rest, but I thought that having 1 or 2 days rest was fine. So I kept trying to go back earlier than what I was ready for. So it wasn't giving myself enough time to actually rest and recoup, because it does take time. When you experience a burnout, it's not going to be a 6-hour fix. You've got to give yourself a couple days, a couple weeks, maybe, or even a month of extra support. Because once you've hit that level, it's you got to take it on a completely different level. That being said, 3 of the biggest lessons I learned navigating this was one of the biggest things that I did that helped me right away was adjusting my goals. Because during the burnout, I still had a goal in my mind that I wanted to compete in March at PANS. And the thought of now sitting at home and missing it was devastating. But that's because that goal was still on the table. So it was a goal that was going to be unmet. And that's really hard, especially again for athletes who are very driven and who put all of this structure in place. To watch it all fall apart can feel devastating. So as soon as I adjusted that goal, pushed it off to a later date to April, and I gave myself a little more breathing room and also adjusted my intensity level at the gym. So instead of going to the gym and going to all the competition classes, I'm just going to basic classes. And that really helped because now instead of like reaching for this goal that I have no ability to reach at this point, it's completely unrealistic. I have now brought a goal down that is a lot more attainable and that I'm able to work towards at a pace that I'm at right now. So adjusting your goals is probably one of the first things that you need to do if you are experiencing a burnout. And the second is building a base of proper habits. And this was really important for me, especially as I mentioned with the stress, like not eating, building a base of proper habits to support your growth, to support your strategies moving forward. So important. So in that time frame, I've built a lot of habits around rest and recovery and mobility and walking and meal prepping. So now I prep my meals and I make sure I have pre and post nourishment after training sessions. It's been a game changer for me. So that was something that has really, really helped me bring me back to a state of balance. And part of the habits also is like supplements and, am I getting the proper protein that I need? And just like really, really taking into account, how am I taking care of myself? Right. And the last lesson that I learned is that it's okay to sleep and it's okay to nap and it's okay to nap again, especially when you're in this stage. Having sleep and having those naps is really important for you and it's okay. And don't feel guilty. So if you need like a 3-hour nap in the afternoon, it's probably because your body needs it. So journaling was also something that really, really helped me as well. Just being able to process my emotion, work things out, adjust my goals. Journaling is always a practice that I implement in everything that I do. That is my takeaway from burnout. And if you are experiencing any of it, or if you have a young athlete in your household who may be experiencing a burnout, these are really great ways to help support them. Again, it comes back down to going back to the basics, habit building, goal setting, and adjusting training intensity and variety is really helpful because you're still engaged, but you're kind of leaning off of the intensity. And then doing like just basic things to take care of yourself, right? Breath work and meditation, I feel, are completely underrated. Definitely do them because coming back to like that mindful state is something that can just be very healing in general. Especially like burnout symptoms can feel very like stressed and anxious and worried. So coming back to the mindful state and just knowing that you're okay in this current state is something that I highly suggest as well. Now, this brings me to my point about how to prevent burnout. Now, this is very important right now for athletes who are approaching playoffs or getting ready for competitions. Sometimes we can burn ourselves out in the process of preparing for competition so that when the competition gets here, we're completely depleted. So that's why I felt this conversation is also equally important so that you can start recognizing the signs and take adjustments right away so you don't make my mistakes, and B, so that you can have more longevity in this sport and enjoy it instead of completely burning yourself out and hating the process. So a big thing with this, again, is listening to yourself, listening to your body, and listening to your cues. So if you wake up one day and if you're like, man, I feel really tired, like, I don't know if I should train with the same intensity. Like, you need to listen, because the thing with burnout too does lead to injury. So really getting into a practice of listening to yourself. And I know like some people are like, if I'm going to listen to myself every single time, then I'm not going to train as well. Like, there is a balance to this, right? And I get that. I get it. When you're an elite athlete, you have to show up, you have to push through. And there is moments when you have to like grind and ignore yourself. But when it comes to a burnout, and when like you know what's happening in your life, right? Like, I knew what was happening in my life. I knew I couldn't handle all of it, but I was ignoring myself, right? So you have to use your own judgment as to what is happening in your life and what you can handle, and really listen. But like I said, there are things that can really help prevent it. And that's adding in a lot of recovery strategies that help bring you back to a state of balance quicker, right? Epsom salt baths, breath work, meditation, mindfulness, journaling, all of these things can help reset yourself so that you are coming back to a state of peace and calm. And the other really good strategy for preventing workout, I think I mentioned this before, was adding in some variety in your training. So maybe you're only training at full steam 1 or 2 days a week, but then the rest you're working on skills and drills and strength training, right? Like, you're still training all the time, but at least you're not doing 100% capacity all the time. You're mixing it up a little bit. Having a strong support system. So really leaning into your parents, your coaches, your teammates, maybe some friends, and really talking. You're feeling a big important part of life is having that companion and co-regulation with other people, practicing mindfulness and stress management techniques, being self-aware, just doing some self-inquiry and self-reflection into how you're feeling each week, and maybe tracking it, taking into consideration what else is happening around your life. And again, prioritizing rest and recovery and making sure you're getting adequate sleep. And sleep is a big one. So practicing proper sleep hygiene, turning off your phone a couple hours before the end of the day, maybe reducing screen time, because that can be as equally affecting your energy as anything else. Another thing that I feel like is really overlooked is, as athletes, we tend to invest a lot of our time and energy into our sport. So sometimes balancing our life with other things like hobbies or crafts or social activities or things that bring relaxation can really, really help kind of calm things down in our life and for our mental recovery. We need to know when we're feeling overly fatigued, both physically and mentally, because these two energies play into each other. We're going to have our physical energy, which is going to be affected by our nutrition and our hydration and our sleep and our recovery. And then we're also going to have our mental energy, which is going to be affected by our stress levels and our, if we're experiencing a lot of fear or doubt around competitions, like how are we managing those fears and that stress and that anxiety? Because that's going to add to the mental fatigue aspect. So it's important to take control of both aspects, right? You have your physical energy and your mental energy. You need to take care of both. And I think a lot of times we completely ignore the mental and just focus on physical. Okay, we're strength training, we're working out, we're going to the gym, we're doing all of these things, and then we sleep. But what are we doing to manage our mental energy? How are we soothing ourselves and emotionally regulating ourselves? Do we have a journaling practice in place? Do we have a mindfulness practice in place? All of these are very, very important in balancing our energies. So definitely do not overlook your mental overload and like the stress that's happening around you, because that is also going to play into the level of burnout you experience. So I think that's a lot of information today. If anybody has any questions, or if you want to reach out, I am available for a one-on-one coaching as well as team workshops. And in spring, I have a cohort opening up in May 2025 for group coaching. So if you're interested in the Flowstate Unleashed program, let me know and we will work something out. Let me know. And yeah. Thank you so much for listening to the Flowstate Unleashed podcast.